Today I'm going to show you how to make a sculpture using clay.
1.
So for this workshop you're going to need some clay, you're going to need some old newspapers like this, and you're going to need some paint and you're going to need your hands. So I'm using for inspiration these cards which show channel markers you can find in the sea. You don't have to use the shapes that they've used on these cards or the colours, but you can take a look at them and use them for inspiration. This one hasn't got much colour on it, but it's got some nice shapes on it. And this one's got some nice shapes on it too. So take a look at some channel markers. If you can Google channel markers, you can have a look online for your own channel markers as well. Or you could use the ones that I've just shown you for inspiration. Okay, now we can get started with our sculpture. To start the sculpture, we're going to need to make a base. So we can think about how we can make a base. I've chosen this card to use as my base. Don't know whether I'd do it this way or I think I'll go for it this way. So my base is going to be two shapes really. It's a kind of hexagonal shape with a more circular shape on top. And so I'm just using my hands to roll around and turn it into a ball. So I'm just rolling it in a ball. So now I've got my two shapes. I've got this rectangular shape and I've got this circular shape, which is a little bit similar to my channel marker. And in order to stick these two on, I'm going to need to make a little bit of slurry. So to do that, I'm going to need a bit of clay and I'm going to pop that in a little pot and add some water to the pot. And this is going to be my slurry, which is like that. And I'm going to use anything really that's got a little pointy edge. I sometimes use a cocktail stick, but today I'm going to use one of these, which is a tool for clay. And where you want to stick your second shape onto your first shape, which is the base, you're going to need to cross hatch each surface like this. So you can see there, cross hatch that. And then I'm just going to use my finger, or you can use a paintbrush if you'd rather. And I'm going to put some of this slurry onto both of the surfaces. Like this. Okay, so I have my base shape. You can use the slurry as well if you want to make your area a bit smoother, and you can dip your finger in the water to make it smooth. Right, the next shape I'm going to think of is I'm going to do something similar to this here. So I'm going to build up some clay with my hands into a sort of long sausage-like shape for this, I think. This clay that we're using at the moment is very, very soft. So as we go on throughout using it, it's going to dry slightly, which is going to make it easier to work with to build up the next shapes that we want. So I'm going to get my shapes ready, and then I've decided that when it's going to be a little bit drier to touch, I will then start to build it up. So while I'm making the shapes, I'm just having a look at how they might work and how I can build them up right now. As I say, that clay is still a bit too wet yet to build it up. So here's the shapes that I've gone for. I'm just going to go off now and have a little break and let these dry out in the air for a little bit. So I've made lots more shapes here, and I'm just playing around with how I might put them together before I'm going to decide on one final way. So it's just a case of putting each shape on to each shape with the slurry in between. Like that. And they are looking more and more figurative the more I build them up. You can sort of see hands and bodies in them. So I'm making a few here now. And when we get to this point, when we've built them up and we've added the slurry to join them together, we can use a tool to add some decoration. Obviously we're going to paint these when they're a bit drier, but we could also at this point add some decoration. So I'm going to take inspiration from my cards again. For example, this one has stripes and I like these little lines they've got going on here. So I'm going to animate that here. And you know, we're not looking for something exact, we're taking inspiration and doing it in a different way. And because they are looking quite figurative, I am going to put some eyes on this one. And sometimes now when we put paint on these, we can again use this tool so that the tool goes through the paint, but we can use these lines as outlines so that for the patterns at this point. When we do this with paint on, this technique is called sgraffito. Okay, so there's one. This one here is looking quite figurative as well, so I'm going to put some hands on this one. Now you can use any tools that you've got at home. For example, I have this tool in my clay studio which has 3 little forks on it, but you could just go to your kitchen and go and get a fork and that will do the same thing. It will have the same effect. I'm going to put something on this one that's got like a jacket with some arms. Here, that's an arrow there. And again some eyes, maybe a nose this time. And I'm going to put some feet on it. Other shapes that we've got on here are circles. I might put a circle on here and a circle on here. This one here, I've already done this one with some triangles. The triangles I found quite tricky to make with clay, so I've scratched in the circle. Make this one quite happy. Okay, so we've got lots of lines to go with here now. They're becoming a bit of a family. Ooh. They're a family of channel people, channel signs, channel marker signs, people. They definitely have like a front and a back at the moment, so we can always turn them around. And I'm going to add something to the back of this one, which is like, so I'm going to cross hatch each side surface of the shape and add the slurry and stick that on the back. I'm going to stick another one on in a sort of cross way, cross shape. So there's no rules to this. There we go. Now they could act as little hands. Maybe this one's got his hands crossed behind his back here. Clay is a very slow process because we have to wait for this now to dry. We can still see that it's still very soft clay. What we want it to be soon is leather hard clay, and I'll show you what that looks like soon. Okay, this one is nearly ready now. And again, I'm just going to do some patterns on this, like this. If you change your mind about the pattern, you can just use your finger and rub it off again. A little bit of water on your finger and you can smooth it all out. And you can see that the clay now is getting pretty sturdy, so it's kind of going what we call leather hard. Yeah, that looks good. Happy with that. Okay, so now at this point you can either, these can be done, you can leave these to dry, or I'm going to have a go at painting them when they're dry. So these need to dry for a day or so, and then we'll come back and maybe paint some of them and maybe leave some of them. And now we're going to do the painting. This is where you're going to need your newspaper. So pop your newspaper on your table where you're going to work, and then get your paints and the colours of paints, and you need a little bit of water in a pot and some paintbrushes.